Hello and welcome to GearHeads. My name's Jesse and today we're going to be working on my wife's 2007 Ford Mustang GT. This thing's got about 135,000 miles on it, so needless to say, a lot of the steering and suspension components are starting to show their age and signs of wear. Today I'm going to be replacing the struts and the shocks, the lower control arms, and the inner and outer tie rod ends. So keep an eye out for those other videos, but in this specific video we're going to be replacing the lower control arms. So there's a lot of different options out there. You can literally just go with, off-the-shelf replacements. You can get them from Ford, you can get them from Napa, AutoZone, whatever. I actually picked up mine online and I'm getting the Ford Performance lower control arms, and they're pretty much the same as the GT500 control arms. And the nice thing about them, they have a little bit beefier construction, and the ball joints are actually replaceable. The factory lower control arms come with a non-serviceable ball joint on these cars. So as long as my bushings last, which usually the bushings actually last longer than the ball joints do, by putting this in, it's a strength upgrade, but it's also a serviceability upgrade, because later on down the road, if those ball joints start to get play in them, I can actually press those out and press new ones on and keep on driving. So in any case, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so obviously most of you guys are probably going to be doing this without a lift. That is totally okay. This job is completely doable on the ground. Just make sure you jack the car up safely on jack stands before you start any work. And also, if you're doing it on the ground and you don't have access to power tools like I'm going to be using, then make sure you do yourself a favor and break your lugs loose. You don't need to take, obviously don't take your wheels off. Just break them all a little bit loose before you lift the car up the ground. Otherwise you're going to have a lot of fun trying to break it loose while the wheel's sitting here spinning. So anyway, go ahead and take your wheels and tires off and we'll move to the next step. So we're going to start by taking the outer tie rod end off. So I always leave the key in the ignition, not in the on position, but if you turn your key forward and then off, it should leave your steering wheel unlocked, and that's nice because then you can move it with your hands like this. Now you're going to need a 17 millimeter to take this off right here. So now to get this tie rod end out, there's a few different methods you can use. You can get a pickle fork and bash it in between here, and that can help separate it. There's also different presses and pullers and stuff that you can buy. I'll make sure I leave some links in the description to different tools that might be helpful for you, because if this method doesn't work, you might need something like that. But for me, at least, being in California with not as bad a rust, most of the time all you've got to do is hit the knuckle right here with a sledgehammer. It might take several hits. But usually you can break them loose that way, so let's go ahead and try it and see if it works. Let's see. There we go. So that one was not too bad and it came out pretty easily. Like I said, if that doesn't work though, you might need a pickle fork to jam in here to separate them, or use a press or a puller. Okay, so to replace the lower control arm, if you want to remove the whole knuckle cup from the car, you can, but you do not have to. Obviously you can see I already put in a new strut. I've got new inner and outer tie rods in this thing. Those are separate videos. If you want to check them out, make sure look in the description for links. But in any case, it is actually not necessary to remove those. I always do pop off the outer tie rod end though, just because it makes it easier to turn and move the knuckle around. But what we're going to do first is take this bolt out in the front, and then we got to get this bolt out up here, and then there's one going up here and then one going up right here for the back side of the lower control arm. Alright, so 15 millimeter on the back side, 18 millimeter on the front side. Sometimes these things get very rusty, so the easiest way to get it out is going to be go ahead and thread the nut on most of the way and tap it with a hammer while you're turning this, and it should come out. Look, I actually didn't even have to keep turning it, it came out. But just keep that in mind. If it's very rusty, you might have some issues. A torch and a big freaking hammer are your friends. There we go. Okay, so after this, we're obviously going to want to separate the knuckle from the ball joint. Okay, so this one is actually loose already. See that, how I can move it? The other side was not, which I already did. I had to use a pickle fork. So this is a pickle fork for anybody that doesn't know. Make sure to look in the description for a link. If this does not come loose easily like this one already is, take a pickle fork in kind of like that. Hit it with a hammer.
get it to separate, and then there we go. So I hit down on it like that. I was able to get it to pop out. So now, pull down on the, here, if you need a little bit extra leverage, you can always stick a pry bar into the control arm in one of these holes here. So let me just pull it down for a little extra leverage, and then we can let that hang out of the way. So that can sit as is for now. Just watch your brake lines and the ABS wire. Make sure you don't tangle or damage anything. But now that that's separated, we can move to the back of the control arm. All right, so you may or may not have a cross brace like this on your car, but if you do, whatever fastener's on the bottom, this happens to have an Allen head at the bottom. The Allen head is a 12 millimeter, and then the nut at the top is a 22 millimeter. So I'll get that in all the way. Ooh, lovely, look at all that rust. This Allen must have been made out of a pretty cheap material. And there might be a washer up top, make sure you don't lose that washer. All right, so on this side we've got a 21 millimeter nut right here, and the bottom has that, come on, that tail on it so it'll keep it from spinning. So go ahead and just take this nut off. There we go. Now the control arm's loose here. We just got to take the front bolt out. All right, so you're gonna need an 18 millimeter to take this one off. Ratcheting wrench is great for this because you are very close to this boot. I already replaced the inner and outer tie rod ends, and I'm going to show you. It's definitely very tight here, but if you turn the steering rack all the way to the other side. Okay, so I pushed the steering rack over to where it's all the way on the other side. Now to break this guy loose. And the reason we're doing this one last is because if you already have it out at the front of the knuckle and you already have the back one out, you can kind of tilt it just a little bit to get this bolt slid underneath the boot. So be careful not to tear your tie rod boot here, but there you go, you should be able to see. Yeah, once we get most of the way out here, you grab a smaller 18 mil here. Okay, here we go. So for this part, lift your boot up and pull it back, and then lift on the back of the control arm a bit and just kind of wiggle and pull at this thing, and you should be able to get it out. Like I said, it's probably not going to be easy, but it is possible. All right, so I can feel in here, the inner tie rod's right here. I'm still hitting that, so I need to pull the steering rack over even more. There we go. All right, so with the steering rack over further, now you can see, whoo, there it goes. Now push the knuckle out of the way, pull this forward, and this whole thing should slip right out just like that. All right, same thing in reverse now. Go ahead and lift up and get the back side of the control arm under that area first, and then get this, push the knuckle to your left to get it out of your way, and get this bushing slid in here like that. And then before you, like I said, you want to get this bolt started before you put the back part of the control arm in, because you won't have enough room otherwise. Come on. Little massage. There we go. Okay, now that that's through, now I'm going to go ahead and lift on the knuckle, get the ball joint started into the knuckle. There we are. All right, once this is at the right spot, you should be able to, you might have to mess with this a little bit. I'm going to tap it with a hammer. Look through this hole and watch. There we go. Okay, you should be able to see if you look through that hole, there's a little bit of a cutout in the ball joint where it'll let the bolt through. Right here, it won't go. There, I lifted a little bit and then it goes through. All right, let's put the nut on the other side. All right, that part's done. All right, so now we want to probably, this bolt is obviously in, but it's not all the way through and it's not straight yet either. So we're gonna wanna go ahead and manipulate the back part of the control arm around, get those bolts in place, and then we can do this one last. And before you tighten it down, make sure you get all your bolts started. So I'm gonna push this back one through, pull down on the control arm bushing here, which might take 2 hands. Come on, baby. There we go, I just got a couple threads on it. All right, now tighten the back down. And then tighten the front down, or the outside down, I should say. All right, now let's get that front bolt on the front part of the control arm in. Now, since everything else is in, this should be pretty straight, so maybe wiggle and push, and then start turning it, and look on the back side. The nut on the back side of the frame is welded on, so just watch until you see the bolt come all the way up to it. All right, there we go. And now you are ready to go ahead and install your outer tie rod in. So just slip it up into place and go ahead and put your nut on. Some of these might come with a castle nut washer where you put a cotter pin through it to secure it. This one actually just comes with a locking nut. But in either case, go ahead and tighten that guy down. All right, so that is how you install lower control arms in the car. Like I said, these are actually the Ford Performance ones, and they should be the same as like the GT500 style. So someday when those ball joints wear out, I should actually be able to swap them out, and as long as the bushings and the control arms are still good, I don't have to worry about anything else. So that's nice to know. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it helpful. Just make sure you look in the description if you have any questions about tools that I used or even parts or whatever. I'll make sure I leave links down there for everything. But as always, thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment if you have any questions. I do my best to get back to you guys whenever I can. And yeah. All right, I'm about ready to go get this thing aligned and actually go have fun driving it finally. It'll be nice to have all the suspension tight again. So in any case, thank you guys again for watching, and as always, keep wrenching.